Yeah, everybody, go ahead. Yeah, a lot of respect for the Eagles organization. Howie's done a really good job of putting the team together. They've taken advantage of some opportunities in different ways. They've traded for players. They've signed players in free agency. They've drafted well. So I think the big thing is just every step of the way, just trying to take advantage of your opportunity from a team building perspective. And, there's no one-size-fits-all formula. So they got good play from a number of different players. They executed in critical situations. I mean, you were there. They were 2-2, and the world was ending. So it just goes to show you it's a long season. The margins in this league are very small. But if you kind of keep pressing forward, the teams that are most consistent over the course of the season put themselves in a position at least to have an opportunity, at the end. And they finished this season off very well. Credit to them. They got a lot of really good players. We feel like we have a decent team. Put ourselves in a kind of a position here each year, this past season as well. I was just talking to our local guys. I mean, other than the Minnesota and Baltimore game, we really had an opportunity to win each game. So what does that tell you? It tells you, all right, we've done enough things. We just got to finish games. We got to execute a little bit more consistently. But if you just keep putting yourself in that position, keep knocking down the door, eventually it's going to cave in. So, but it was fun to watch. Just the postseason is always fun to watch. There's a reason those teams are still playing. We've been fortunate to be playing here the last couple of years. We've been in the last 8 the last 2 years. So what's the next step? I mean, I don't know. It's just about trying to put together a good team once the season starts. It's just about being consistent over the course of a long period of time. So we're trying to build a consistent program be a consistent winner. We've got one of the best head coaches in the league. We got one of the best quarterbacks in the league. We feel like we have some really good young players. So just try to continue to build and take advantage of our opportunities and be smart about it. Yeah, I mean, everybody can massage the salary cap and do what you will. At some point, I'm not a math major, but accounting, everything comes due at some point. So it's like our government. I know we got a, $40 trillion deficit. Well, at some point, we're going to probably have to pay for that, right? So you can push everything out as long as you want to. And we've talked about this, we look at the team building kind of in a 2-year kind of window. All right, 25, 26, where are we? What can we do? It doesn't mean, well, if we don't win enough games in that 2 years, then we're going to blow everything up. So just trying to be strategic, trying to make good, smart decisions along the way. You have to understand you're going to draft, you're going to have young players. Okay, if you're going to keep young players, okay, other players are going to have to roll off. So what's that balance? That's kind of the game that everybody's kind of playing. So, I mean, Howie's found a way to create some, mechanics of pushing them. No, I'm kidding. I got a lot of respect for him. But they got a good team. But, look, you're going to be able to keep players. By the same token, you're going to lose players. You can't keep everybody. So that's where your scouting, your process. We were just talking about this. I think Bond is a phenomenal example, and Bond's a great player. So signed a 1-year, $3.5 million deal, right? So it's kind of his career was what it was. The guy was a all-pro player. Now he's going to capitalize. So, I mean, that's good management. That's good scouting. That's good coaching. They put him in a position, and he was one of their best players. A credit to Zach. He took advantage of his opportunity. So it's all a player can do. Give him an opportunity, put himself in a position. I would say Cashman, for those of you that followed our team, over the last few years, Cashman was the same way. We brought Blake over, gave up a 6th or 7th round pick, whatever it was, had a really good year, capitalized on free agency, had a big impact on the Vikings. We got good production from Henry, signed Aziz. Christian was out. Hopefully get Christian back. So, I mean, it's a cat and mouse game. You got to bob and weave. You got to be flexible. You got to be adaptable. So that's what we're going to try to do. Yeah, there's always different ways you can do it. I mean, you can release players, you can restructure players, you can sign extensions. So we'll entertain all and everything. So we're not going to be fixated on one particular thing. But you want to be strategic. You want to be smart about how you do it. So try to keep as number of good players as you can. Where's the opportunity there on a margin? And just try to make good, smart decisions. Yeah, it's like year one. I mean, it's been phenomenal from the beginning. And I've been asked about DeMeco countless times, and I feel the same way. I love the guy personally and professionally. His consistency on a day-to-day basis, his message, how he handles the team, it resonates. And look, he's one of the best head coaches in the league. I don't think anybody would argue that. So we're very fortunate to have him in a position that he's in. I enjoy our relationship. We enjoy each other's relationship. My role and job is to support him in any way possible. So that's my fiduciary responsibility to him. So, and I'll go to war with this guy. So whatever he needs, whatever he thinks we need to do, we talk about it. We have good conversations. We view football through the same lens. A lot of times I'm talking, he's thinking, I'm talking. So we see it through the same kind of, I mean, he's old school in a lot of ways, but he has a very personal touch, and the players respect the hell out of him, and he's so consistent. And when you walk in the building, you feel his energy, you feel his juice, and there's a reason why players want to come to Houston. It's to play for DeMeco, and it's to play for the players, with the players that are in the locker room. I try to get the hell out of the way and just try to be a good resource for DeMeco as much as I can. It's a great question. It's case by case. I would see you've kind of seen the players that have played a lot of football. You know, you're looking at, go through the play history, and some of these players started 40 games, 50 games. You get better at football by playing football. It doesn't mean if you're an underclassman, you've played less games, doesn't mean you can't be successful. I'd say Nico Collins is a good example in our case, where basically he played 2 years of college football, missed his third year, had some traits that we liked, and I'd say he worked and to put himself in the position that he's in. So I think we're cognizant of the landscape of college football. It doesn't necessarily change our calculus, change about how we go about evaluating players. But when you see them play, you just want to see them play football. And sometimes they're a little bit more physically and mentally ready. Some players are further along. Some players might be behind. It doesn't mean they can't catch up. That's part of our job and responsibility, to create an infrastructure for the players so when they come here, what are the things that they need to be successful? And then that's part of the job of the coaching staff as well, is to put the players in the position to go out there and be successful. So it's definitely evolving. We're certainly aware and cognizant of it, but it doesn't necessarily shifted how we view players. Go ahead, Will. Yep. Yeah, I think everybody probably has an opinion on it. I think what I would say, and DeMeco and I have talked about this, you don't necessarily want to penalize a team that's done something very well. Like credit to Coach Stoutland and Coach Sirianni for that's a play that's been effective for them. They got a good quarterback who's got good lower body strength. I mean, not every quarterback can squat 600, 700 pounds. So the techniques that they utilize. So, again, just because you can't stop the play, I mean, is that something that you have to take out of the game? I think you got to be careful about just totally ridding the game of it. I would say, I'm sure the league will talk about player health and safety. Is it put the players at risk? It's a well-executed play by the Eagles, all right? And they've had success doing it. No one's been able to stop it. So, honestly, at some point, the onus is on, figure out a way. And if you can't, and the way they implement it, they're one of the few teams, or about the only team, that handles it the way that they do. So the sneak play in and of itself, there's a lot of dynamics that are involved. Some quarterbacks want to be in a fray. Some quarterbacks don't. You look at Buffalo, Josh is, 6'5", 250 pounds. So, I mean, he reaches his hand out there. He's got a first down, So every team's got to handle a little bit differently. So I would just say, to penalize a team because they do something well, it's probably something we just, need to think about as a league. Yeah, CJ's a good player. He has to continue to improve. There's things that he's going to work on in the offseason. But the offseason is an opportunity for every player to improve their individual performance and get themselves ready for the season in front of them. So CJ's done a lot of great things on a yearly basis. His first year, he did a lot of really good things last year as well. I think sometimes that kind of gets lost in the shuffle there a little bit. So, all right, what happened last season? What can we learn from it as a team? What can he learn from it individually? Okay, in the offseason, here are the things that I'm going to focus on to try to make myself a better football player. You get better at football by working, practicing, playing football. So, that's your job and responsibility, and that's what we ask of all of our players. So I think CJ's motivated this offseason to have a good offseason, prepare himself to try to be the best player he can be, once the season starts. Yeah, the sooner you have just something in place, at least you have an idea of the direction that you're going to go. Doesn't necessarily change how you evaluate or scout players. Not necessarily. I mean, there's certain things you got to be able to do offensively. So maybe there's some things, okay, Nick, in this particular case, puts a little bit more weight or stock in. So, but to get that in place, I mean, we went through it. It took us, 2 weeks-ish from start to finish. So, we're very thoughtful. DeMeco put a lot of time into it, kind of went through the process, and they kind of made a decision there that Monday or whenever it was. So to get Nick in the building, to get him with the offensive staff, to kind of get them situated, we've given them some players to evaluate, both collegiately and pro free agency as well. So free agency will be here, before we know it. So we want their input. How do you view the player? How do you see the roles? It's different than maybe what we think. So that'll be the first step. But to get that in place, it gives you some level of stability. Now you can just put the foot on the gas and start moving. Yeah, it's always case by case, I would say. In Cole's case, I mean, Cole's got a lot of experience. He's been in the league for a number of years. The players, had, again, you're not going based off of what players think, but they felt there was some positives. And I'd say some of the offensive coordinators that we talked about had referenced Cole as somebody that they would want to potentially consider, separate from us. So, all right, well, the guy's here. Okay, does it make sense? How does Nick Caley feel about it? We had a few other candidates that also had identified Cole as somebody. I think Cole was, highly thought of in the league, and an opportunity externally away from Houston last year. He decided to stay in Houston. So we'll see how it goes. I'm sure there's some things that Cole is going to do, kind of put his spin on it. But once we kind of get started, we'll kind of have a better idea of what that looks like. Yeah, there's never one particular thing. So I think the big thing is, can you get the players to do the right thing? Do they understand their assignment? Do they play with the right techniques? Do they play with the right fundamentals? Can they execute their assignment? They have an understanding of what's going on. So don't want to oversimplify it. I mean, sometimes it's we got to come up with some magic formulas. So, I mean, you protect from the inside out. Can you protect the interior of the pocket? Can you identify the rushers that are most the threat? Do you have an answer to solution as what they're doing on defense? So we'll do whatever we think makes the most sense. Again, it's February 25th or 26th, so where we are today could be different in a week from now. Could be different a few months from now. I mean, I don't know how it looks. So, I mean, just because a guy is here doesn't necessarily mean, well, that's what it's going to look like. I mean, you guys were here a couple of years ago, where we basically traded for 3 offensive linemen, signed another player, guys that weren't even here, weren't even talking about in training camp. We're playing week 1 through 4. So, I mean, that's just how it goes. So you're prepared for anything. So you got to start with the foundation. You got to start somewhere with the group, and then just kind of figure it out as you go. Yeah, there's always a cost. There's an opportunity cost associated with doing something. So, okay, said player, here's a cost associated with them, whether it's a contract, whether it's draft compensation. Do you feel the player is worth that, whatever the opposing team is asking? Trades are always, it takes 2 to tango. So we could think one thing, they could think another thing. If it matches up, I mean, in the Diggs case is a good example. So we felt comfortable with that. We thought it made sense. We thought it was the right value, so we went ahead and did it. What's going to look like this year? I mean, I'm not sure. So we'll go through this process here. So, again, I think we're very case by case. Look at the situation, take the information in. All right, if we make this decision, what's at the expense of? All right, what are the alternatives? What's the next best option? And that's kind of how we'll approach it. All right, thanks, y'all.